Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. I'm the Reverend Ned Wight, the interim senior minister here at the congregation, serving with the Reverend Jennifer Brower, who is here on the chancel with me, and the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, who is on sabbatical through June. We welcome you here on this Sunday morning, which is spring. Claire Brock was saying it's sort of a gloomy spring day, but if you just look at the flowers blooming and just don't pay attention to the gray sky, it'll remind you that spring is here with a vengeance. It's terrific. You have a visitor card in your pew rack if you are new to us and would like to fill that out. That will enable you to get our newsletter and to tell us a little bit about ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Also, we have a UU Cafe immediately following the service, and if you are a newcomer, we will compliment you with lunch, so stop by the visitor's desk out front to get a voucher to allow you to do that. That would be wonderful. Today at 1 o'clock, there is a prospective member orientation in the office conference room, which is downstairs in this building. That's at 1 o'clock. Also at 1, we have a fantastic new art exhibit in the art gallery that is opening. You will not want to miss those spectacular pieces of art. I know this is also the first day that the beach site visit will be happening for some of you. Some people will be going off to Miami to enjoy the weather there. And bring some back to us, please. Just letting you know. Thank you. Okay, good. We bless the beach site visit crew as they go visit some of our partners who are doing incredible work in creating social justice opportunities in Florida. On Friday the 3rd, 8:30 till 3, there is a working but still poor conference that Long Island Jobs with Justice is doing here, and the New York State Attorney General Letitia James will be delivering the closing remarks for that. I think Claire DeRoche might have some additional information about that if that's something that you would be interested in participating in. Next Sunday, there will be a car wash. We're hoping that the weather will be blazing, lovely sun, and it will show off all the dirt on your car, and you'll have to get it washed. That will be in the lower parking lot. The senior seminar will be raising funds for their next service learning trip to West Virginia. Next Sunday will also be the last day for the United Veterans Beacon House food drive. There are bags that you can pick up to gather food this week and bring that back. At 11 a.m., we will observe anniversaries of people's membership from 5 years through 55 years. We have a 55-year member. And we will have our flower communion. So please bring a flower that will be part of our ritual next week. We also have a congregational meeting next week, so come early and plan to stay forever. We get a head start on anniversaries this very Sunday because we are able to mark 2 very significant ones for our music program. Marking 20 years with us, our beloved music director, Stephen Michael Smith. 20 years, and it only seems like 40. And bass baritone soloist Bruce Negron. 20 years. The choir embarrassed them with a surprise celebration on Thursday, and I think they were surprised and they blushed. So this is great. At this point, we invite you to greet your neighbor warmly and welcome them to the fellowship of this congregation. Well, we'll see. They may arrive yet.
The opening words are of Chief Dan George. The beauty of the trees, the softness of the air, the fragrance of grass, speak to me. The summit of the mountain, the thunder of the sky, the rhythm of the sea, speak to me. The faintness of the stars, the freshness of the morning, the dewdrop of the flowers, speak to me. The strength of fire, the taste of salmon, the trail of the sun, and the life that never goes away, they speak to me, and my heart soars. When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the morning light, for your life and strength. Give thanks for your food and the joy of living. If you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault lies in yourself. Now please rise in body and spirit as we sing together hymnal number 1067 in the Teal hymnal, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. Hymn number 1067.
Would you please join in our words and song of affirmation, which are printed in your order of service? Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, this do we affirm and covenant with each other. We had prepared this morning to perform a dedication ceremony for a new one in our midst, but we think the parents had a little trouble this morning. So we will see if our little one arrives with her folks, or if we need to postpone our service of dedication. Shall we move on? Yeah. We shall move on.
While she's coming forward, just a little note that maybe it's appropriate. This is actually Leah's birthday as well. So this is her birthday gift to us, and we are most grateful. Freely have we been given, let us also freely give. The offering for the work of this congregation will now be gratefully received. Will the ushers please come forward?
We are so glad that you all made it this morning. We worried about you. It has become common for families to request that their youngest, that their babes, be recognized and blessed in private ceremonies. It seems that everything has become kind of like a bat mitzvah or a wedding these days. But it is such a great gift when new parents ask us to recognize their family and bless their children in a worship service. It's a gift to the parents. It allows them to feel a deeper connection with the wider community and to be held by the congregation, which they are now a part of, and to feel that their baby has been received into that intentional community of care and support and nurture, that there's this whole big gathering of folks who are going to be looking out for their child in the years to come. But it's not just good news for the parents, it's good news for us. And I'll stop moving in whatever way it is that I'm doing that and making that sound. So you tell me, Chris. Don't look down. It's good for all of us when a family asks to have their baby blessed in worship. Because we could all use a little bit of joy, could we not? Oh, yes, we can. It's important for us to be reminded of the energy and possibility within each new life and to know that that spirit still resides within us too. Even if it feels like that flame is burning low, it is still there and we can nurture it back to full flame. We often speak of our children as our future, and though they do give us hope that what we value and what we teach them will carry on long after we are gone, our children are also our present. And they call forth from us our best selves in the here and the now. So let us appreciate them for the blessing that they are in this moment and in every moment in the years to come. The ritual of welcoming a child is both ancient and timeless. In all parts of the earth and from the earliest days of recorded history, Families have brought their children to a house of worship to share with the members of the wider community their joy and their commitment as parents. This morning, in this gathered company and with those who are absent but present in the hearts of Shine Han and Siobhan Taylor, we've come to celebrate with them and to dedicate ourselves to the care and well-being of their child. I ask them to please come forward and stand here on the chancel with me. Come, let us get to see you. It's not really you we want, you know, though. Come on over here so everybody can see you. That's fine. That's just fine. You know, we are all such a bunch of suckers, aren't we? And it is glorious. Yes, look at that. Glorious. In this sacred ritual, we celebrate, bend over backwards for, wave at, and delight in the presence of this child. We honor the noble and often challenging vocation of parenthood. We offer our blessings upon this precious new life and hold in memory the generations that came before and wonder about those yet to come. It is a wonder and a mystery and a marvel that any one of us is here. Siobhan and Han, before I ask you to speak aloud your commitments to your daughter, I remind you of these, the words of Khalil Gibran. A woman held a babe against her bosom and said, "Speak to us of children." And the wise one said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite and bends you with might that the arrows may go swift and far. May your bending in the archer's hand always be for gladness. Siobhan and Han, in bringing your child to the service of naming and dedication, you acknowledge that she belongs not only to you, but also to humanity, and that to you is entrusted for a time the sacred obligation of this new life with all of her budding possibility. Upon you rests the sacred task of nurturing your child through maturity, guiding her with love, worthy aspiration, and joyful hearts. And so I now ask you to speak aloud your dedication to your daughter. Yes. Mom and Dad have to answer. Do you declare your intention to nurture her to the best of your ability by your teaching and by your example, giving her faith in life and a joyful hope so that she will grow in strength and wisdom and learn to walk in the ways of truth and love and justice? And will you love her and cherish her all the days of your life? If so, please say we will.
We will.
I'm sure. Han and Siobhan, by what name is your child known?
Sharon Han.
Her full name?
Oh, Sharon Taylor Han.
There you go. Sharon, the timeless but now uncommon name. Yes, you know your name. Chosen for you for many reasons, my dear. Chosen for you. Your parents appreciated its similarity to your father's name and its connection to your maternal grandmother's love of the rose of Sharon. Your parents, already quite taken with your blossoming and unfolding before their very eyes, have given you this lovely name, and may your growing season be long and glorious. Taylor Han, your middle and last names identify your circles of kinship. These names connect you to your parents and link you to the generations of Taylors and Hans before you all over the world. Sharon Taylor Hahn, I confirm to you this name, unique to you among all the people in this world. It is our prayer and the prayer of your parents and all who love you, that through your living others will come to look upon your name and find it blessed. Traditionally, the element of water has played a symbolic part in religious ceremonies, welcoming young children into the community. Water is a symbol of purity and innocence. It's a symbol of spiritual nurture and bodily health. And above all, water is essential for all living creatures to flourish and thrive. So with water from old nature's infinite sky, from which all of life arises, which touches every shore and nourishes all people, Sharon Taylor Hahn, ooh, it's a little cold. I touch your young brow that you may learn to think clearly. I touch your lips that you will always speak the truth. I touch your heart that you will love deeply and widely. I touch your hands that you will commit to good work in this world. I touch your sweet feet that you will travel over difficult paths with confidence and with ease. And I touch Daddy and Mommy so that they will always remind you of how precious and loved you are. And now, my dear, with this rose, a symbol of life's unfolding beauty, we welcome you, Sharon, into the community of all souls. Whether a flower is beautiful or not, whether it grows into full bloom or not, whether it fulfills itself as a flower or not, depends upon the nurture it receives. No flower grows alone apart from the sunshine and the rain or the soil in which it lives. And so too will you grow with the support of your parents and your larger family and this, your community of faith. Friends, would you please join in the words of affirmation which are printed in your order of service, that we can all recite together. Sharon, as your family, friends, and religious community, we rejoice in your presence among us, and we affirm our responsibility to lovingly guide you in your quest for a good and meaningful life. We pledge to support you in your own true growing, and we pray that you will wear your name with pride. At this hour, we also think of the other children of your generation, and whose welfare is inseparable from your own. As we have pledged ourselves to you, may we dedicate ourselves to creating a more just, safe, and peaceful world for the whole human family. Sharon Taylor Hahn. Sharon is a very friendly baby. She came down to my office a couple of weeks ago and was very quick to leap into my arms and Betty Gold's arms, and we were more than glad to receive her. So you all can expect that she will be leaping into your arms as well. We give thanks for her presence and for her parents' commitment to this faith and this congregation, and their faith in us to help raise their beautiful baby girl.
We're multitask, okay. As everyone is meeting this precious little gift, I ask you to please join me in the reading of the Chinook Blessing Liturgy, printed in your order of service. You will please respond with the words and in the italic portion. We call upon the earth, our planet home, and its beautiful depths and soaring heights, its vitality and abundance of life, and together we ask that it teach us and show us the way. We call upon the mountains, the high green valleys, and the meadow filled with wildflowers, the snow that never melts, the summit of intense silence, and we ask that they teach us and show us the way. We call upon the waters that rim of the earth, horizon to horizon, that flow in our rivers and streams, that fall upon our gardens and fields, and we ask that they teach us and show us the way. We call upon the land which grows our food, the nourishing soil, the fertile fields, the abundant garden and orchards, and we ask that they teach us. We call upon the forests, the great trees, reaching strong, leading to the sky, with earth in their roots and the heavens in their branches, the fern, the pine, the cedar, and we ask them to teach us and show us the way. We call upon the creatures of the fields, the forest, and the seas, our brothers and sisters, the wolves and the deer, the eagle and the dove, the great whales and the dolphins, and we ask them to teach us and show us the way. We call upon all those who have lived on this earth, our ancestors, our friends, who dream the best for future generations, and upon whose souls and lives are built. And with thanksgiving, we call them upon to teach us and show them the way. And lastly, we call upon all that we hold most sacred, the present and the power of the great spirit of love and truth, which flows through all the universe, to be with us and to teach us and show us the way.
We invite you now into the private ritual of lighting candles of concern or sorrow or joy. We begin by lighting a candle. Ned, would you help me with this, please? We light a candle of sorrow for all those affected by violence in their houses of worship. It happens so often. It both horrifies and distresses us and doesn't even seem that shocking some days. We've come to expect it. It is so terrible. So we light this candle for all those affected by violence in their houses of worship. We light another candle for the bereaved among us today. We know that there are those here who are suffering personal loss, and so we kindle a flame for them. And a third we light for hope and for joy and for new life and for Sharon's generation and those that will come after. We invite you in this quiet time to light your candles of concern and hope.
Today's meditation is a Native American prayer from Earth's Prayer. Let us think of Mother Earth, her rich bounty that will result from springtime, the golden corn and the seeds of harvest, all grown strong from Mother Earth, the spring rain and the energy of Father Sky. It is a time to consider healing of ourselves, healing of loved ones, healing of adversaries for peace among nations, and healing of the harm done to Mother Earth. O Great Spirit, I pray for myself in order that I may be healed. O Great Spirit, I pray for my close friends who are sick and need help. O Great Spirit, I pray for this world so that all these atomic weapons and other bad things that we're pointing to each other will someday soon be destroyed. I pray that all adversaries will communicate and all of the mistrust will be healed. O Great Spirit, I pray for the environment. I pray for its cleansing and the renewal of our Mother Earth. Aho.
Amen.
That took some of us back to a totally different time and place, I have to say. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our sixth source, we've reached the final source in our six sources. The living tradition we share draws from many sources, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. As many of you know, in 1961, the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America merged. And as part of that merger, they drafted a statement of principles and purposes drawn from both traditions. A couple of those were supreme worth and dignity of every human personality, and love to God and love to man. That's the way it was worded then. In 1980, there were some people who said that this statement seemed a little shop-worn, and there was a definite feminist critique of the statements. And so they commissioned a committee to discuss and develop new purposes and principles. Their proposal for 7 principles and 5 sources was voted into bylaws in 1985, and that remained our statement of principles and sources for a decade. The hymnal that I purchased when I was in seminary, singing the living tradition, the gray hymnal, listed only 5 sources. It stops after humanist teachings. Actually, if you look in your own hymnal there, and right inside probably the 4th or 5th page, you'll find a list of the principles and sources. Some of you may have 5, some of you may have 6. It all depended when the book was published. So what happened to change that? In 1991, there was a workshop at GA on earth-centered and indigenous spirituality that proposed wording for a 6th source to add to the original 5. That was voted on in different forms in Calgary in 92, Charlotte in 93, and a more intensive congregational study. And then finally, the language that we have in our hymnal was presented and debated at the Fort Worth GA in 1994. It's hard to believe from this second decade of the 21st century how controversial this adoption was. Let me share with you this morning some of the issues that were part of that debate. On the arguments against adding a 6th source, the first was it would be redundant. This is already included under mystery and wonder or under the world religions. We don't need another one. The principle and sources should represent a broad middle ground. This is too specific. This is not in our UU traditions. This is motivated by political correctness, and we should avoid it. This sounds like new arguments, doesn't it? This is a long time ago. We only give lip service to these teachings, so why should we include this? It's internally contradictory. The rhythms of nature include destruction and pain and death. We affirm openness to the forces that create and uplift life. It was, and you'll love this one, this is nothing new for us, it was a haphazard and hasty process. The process was deficient. We don't know anything about that as Unitarian Universalists, any problems with process. So the arguments for adding this as a 6th source, it reflected growing UU practices because there were, in fact, the coming of UU pagans. There was a whole growth of organizations doing earth-based ritual, broadened our understanding of religious pluralism, and added to our commitment to embrace greater cultural diversity. It affirms our long-standing and deep connection with our ancestors' faiths, tied to the cycles of nature and our closeness and interdependence with the earth. It gives a greater place of honor to women and goddesses. It is consistent with the American UU tradition of creativity, pluralism, and anti-authoritarianism, wedded with skepticism and rationality. It opens a wider door to welcome sources that sustain us. And we need to revise our principles from time to time. Everybody does. The first three sources are general. The latter two are specific. Therefore, expanding the list is appropriate as a new consensus about a source emerges. It's consistent with our awareness that our survival depends on the insights of ecologists, nature writers, and earth traditions. And it's consistent with a theology of risk. We want to do it because it bothers us, because it keeps us on our toes, because not everybody agrees with it. Well, as you might suspect, there was a heated debate and lots of impassioned speakers. At the end, the vote was 358 against, 735 in favor, but the 735 was only 13 votes over the 722 required for a 2/3 majority. The sixth source was adopted. And we, UUs, are still living with the implications for us because of that vote 25 years ago. It was, in fact, a mandate for all of us UUs to get to know more about Earth-centered traditions, to discover and explore common principles, to deepen our reverence for nature, to emphasize rituals based on seasonal celebrations, to affirm multiple spiritual pathways, not just one spiritual truth or one way for all people, to affirm that divinity is immanent and alive in everything, that experience may be as important as belief, and that rituals and customs defy belongings, not creeds. Finally, that no single book, no exclusive prophet or guru defines religion for all time or all people. As UUs, we're committed to seeking what's affirming, nourishing, and life-giving from any and all sources. Calls for us to dig deeper into the earth connections of our own spirituality, for whatever else we might call ourselves as people on planet Earth, we are earthlings. For our congregations, this has meant more seasonal observances, chants, festivals, songs, prayers, rituals. We have had solstice services here at our congregation, more study opportunities for ecology and deep ecology. The Green Sanctuary Initiative for the UUA grew out of this commitment, and we are blessed and greatly enriched to have members of our own congregation, like Winterflower, who take on the role of teacher and guide to us in opening our minds and our hearts to earth-centered Native American wisdom and practice, as she did once again on Friday at Hadley House. For us all as individuals, we face perhaps now the biggest challenge of all, because this is still very much in process. Nearly 3 decades ago, Joanna Macy, who actually was on the radio this morning talking to Chris Tippett of all things, there are no coincidences in life. She laid out a framework for this process and how important it is for human survival in an article entitled "The Greening of the Self." She urged us to shift from what Alan Watts described as our skin-encapsulated egos to an ecological self, something coextensive with other beings and with all others on planet Earth. Macy quotes John Seed, then director of the Rainforest Information Center in Australia, who is struggling then as now to save the rainforest from destruction by lumber interests and politicians. I try to remember that it's not me, John Seed, trying to protect the rainforest. Rather, I'm part of the rainforest protecting myself. I am that part of the rainforest recently emerged into human thinking. This is what Macy means by the greening of the self, combining the mystical with the practical and the pragmatic. This shift, which Seed calls a spiritual change, generates a sense of profound interconnectedness with all life. The crisis that threatens our planet, Macy goes on, whether seen from its military, ecological, or social aspect, derives from a dysfunctional and pathological notion of the self. It derives from a mistake about our place in the order of things. It is a delusion that the self is so separate and fragile that we must delineate and defend its boundaries, that it is so small and so needy that we must endlessly acquire and endlessly consume, and that it is so aloof as individuals, corporations, nations, states, or species, we are immune to what we do to other beings. These were radical ideas 30 years ago, and they're even more radical, or still radical now, and call for us to consider some radical changes. These are echoed by Thomas Berry in his book, The Dream of the Earth. He calls for the same transformation of human consciousness. He speaks in terms of drawing upon the wisdom of Native Americans' human intimacy with the earth. Loss of species is loss of divine presence and irremediable loss. Berry writes of the need for a great courtesy toward the earth. I love that phrase, great courtesy toward the earth. And he reminds us that Unitarians are among the most enlightened, inspired proponents of this kind of courtesy. People like Emerson, Whitman, Thoreau, continued by Lauren Isley, Annie Dillard, and others. He calls on us to reinvent the human as species within the community of life species. Our sense of reality and of value must consciously shift from an anthropocentric to a biocentric norm of reference. From a reference to us as human beings to a reference to us as residents, inhabitants of planet Earth. He calls us to shift our focus from cultural coding back to genetic coding for guidance, claiming that in the West, he writes, our cultural coding has set itself deliberately against our genetic coding, and the instinctive tendencies of our genetic endowment are systematically negated. Our secular, rational, industrial society, with its amazing scientific insight and technological skills, has established the first radically anthropocentric society and has thereby broken the primary law of the universe, the law of the integrity of the universe, the law that every component member of the universe should be integral with every other member of the universe, and that the primary norm of reality and of value is the universe community itself in its various forms of expression, especially as realized on planet Earth. The day of reckoning has come, he warns. In this disintegrating phase of our industrial society, we now see ourselves not as the splendor of creation, but as the most pernicious mode of earthly being. We are the termination, not the fulfillment of the earthly process. If there were a parliament of creatures, its first decision might well be to vote the humans out of the community. Too deadly a presence to tolerate any further. We are the affliction of the world, its demonic presence. We are the violation of Earth's most sacred aspect. His ultimate conclusion is, like Rachel Carson and other scientific prophets foresaw, a silent spring, closing down the life systems of the planet, and calls us to awaken out of our cultural pathology. So this is where earth-centered traditions come in to reorient us as Unitarian Universalists. Berry urges us to look to shamanic personalities like Winterflower, capable of speaking and understanding the language of the various creatures of the earth, helping us reconnect our cultural coding with our genetic coding, reinterpreting our dream of the earth and our place in the dream, capable of helping us redefine ourselves in relation to other life forms and to the whole earth itself. He likens us to 21st century earthlings, the crew of the Titanic, heading into iceberg-infested water, arrogant about our invulnerability, believing our own rationalizations. And because we, as Unitarian Universalists, have adopted earth-centered traditions as our sixth source of inspiration and authority for our faith, we put ourselves into the engine room and onto the bridge of that earth ship. The time is overdue for us to renew our mission to green ourselves and teach others to regard themselves as interconnected with the earth in that way. The living tradition we share draws from many sources, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. This source calls us to reflect, study, and act, not because our lives will be thereby enriched, but because our lives will only thereby be sustained. Our sixth source issues from a call for transformation that is as profound as any we might hear, for it calls us to redefine our very selves. The health of our planet, legacy to our children and our children's children, depends upon our heeding this call. So may it be. Shalom. Blessed be. Insha'Allah. Aho Shanti. Amen. Hymn number 1073, The Earth is Our Mother, a good reminder. 1073 in the teal hymnal. Please stand and body your spirit as we sing this together.
Grandfather, look at our brokenness. We know that in all creation, only the human family has strayed from the sacred way. We know that we are the ones who are divided, and we are the ones who must come back together to walk in the sacred way. Grandfather, sacred one, do you just love, compassion, and honor, that we may heal the earth and heal each other?